All right, I guess we've got it. So we'll see how long it lasts. We'll give it a shot. Again, for those that might be watching at home, my name's Mike Kopkas. I'm the current CPS president. And tonight we're going to have a presentation by our own Chuck Fitzgerald on light painting and night photography. So before we get started, we do have some announcements. So let me get those going. Yeah.
Just turn the camera on.
I'm clicking and nothing's happening, so. All right.
Read the announcements.
Yeah, if I could sing and dance, I'd
Yeah.
put on a little song and dance. You don't want to see that. Oh. Did it turn red again?
No, he's not finding the. Oh, since you got a second PowerPoint in there, is that maybe why?
Unfortunately, I don't have these memorized, so I'm counting on the fact that they'll come up. Mhm. No, the last two are the concluding slides.
There you go.
Hey, we made it. All right, let me see if we advance. Yes, okay. All right, again, a few announcements before we turn this over to Chuck for his presentation. We do have some upcoming competitions. Next week, November 5th, will be a black and white competition, and it is a projection. The deadline has actually passed. It was October 27th, so if you haven't submitted, you're too late to be in this particular competition. However, we do invite you to come and listen to the judges' comments. That one will be out on YouTube. It'll be displayed here in the club and also on YouTube. On November 12th, we have a bee competition. That's a print competition. Again, bee competitions are primarily for students, beginning photographers, and so on, to give them a taste of being in the competitions. If you're in the regular competitions, you cannot be in the bee competition. Okay? And then November 19th is a creative competition. That's also a print competition. With print competitions, you need to have a matted image in by the beginning, before the program starts. So say by 7:25, no later than 7:25, so they need a little bit of time to get those prepared and so on. So you can submit up to 3 images in that particular category. 3 images at night, 2 in the category, and 1 pictorial, or you can do all 3 pictorial if you want, but no more than 2 in the particular category. So those are the upcoming competitions, probably through the end of the year. If I remember, there are no competitions in December, correct?
None in
Yeah,
December.
so those will be the rest for the end of this calendar year. Also, we've got some Zoom presentations coming up. These are members-only Zoom presentations. December 3rd, we have Jennifer King, who'll be talking about image design, being able to use design principles to improve your photography. On December 10th, we have Max Waugh, who's a wildlife photographer, and he's going to be talking about nature and wildlife. Now, again, those will be Zoom presentations. They are for members only. We will be sending out a link to the Zoom call probably about 2 days before each of those, and we are planning to open them up to the club. doing the Zoom
The
here
club-
as well?
The club will be open,
So,
yes.
so the club will be open, so you can either watch from home or you can come here and we'll have it on the big screen here. So, again, if people want to get together and talk before the meeting, come to the club and we can kind of do that. Upcoming field trips, December 17th, we're going to, in lieu of a meeting, we're going to have a field trip downtown to take pictures of the Christmas lights. So we'll meet at Public Square, or we're going to meet at...
Going to meet at Public Square across the street from the front of Terminal Tower. Unfortunately, we can't meet in front of the Terminal Tower because we got kicked out last time. So at the back of, I don't know if you pronounce it Rebel or Rebel. On the back, there's a big mural. We'll meet in front of that mural.
Okay, and then from there, they'll march down to Playhouse Square, taking pictures along the way. So you can check the calendar out for more details, calendar on the website. We've opened registration for our winter classes. The winter session will begin in January. So we are going to be offering 3 different classes this winter. First one is Fundamentals of Good Photography, and that'll be on Wednesday nights, starting January 5th and running through March 23rd. And that's from 7:30 to 10 on Wednesday nights. Photoshop editing will be on Saturdays for the winter quarter. And it'll be 10 Saturdays starting January 8th and running through March 12th. And then we are going to be offering intermediate Photoshop. We had planned to offer that in the fall. We didn't get enough enrollment to really justify offering it. So we have agreed that we were going to offer it in the winter. So it'll start January 17th and run through March 7th. We will not be offering a Lightroom class until spring. So there will not be a winter Lightroom session. Okay, but if you want to register for those classes, I urge you to sign up as soon as possible, especially for fundamentals. That has a tendency to, we can only accommodate so many people, so that would be one that could potentially sell out. So, all right, and again, we invite you to watch most of our Friday evening meetings on YouTube. Again, members-only meetings will be Zoom, and they will not be out on YouTube. But you can watch them at your convenience on the CPS YouTube channel. So there's a link on the homepage of the website, or you can go to YouTube and search for Cleve Photographic. And you can subscribe to our channel, and you'll be notified whenever a new video is posted. Okay, so with that, let me introduce Chuck. Most of you probably know Chuck. He's our first vice president. And he's been a member, I don't know, probably a little longer than I have, I would guess.
I think it's been 6 years.
6 years?
Something
Okay.
like that.
Well, then I beat you because I'm 7 years. In any event, he's our first vice president. He's been very into light painting and night photography as long as I've known him. He's been extremely helpful in lining up speakers and in helping with our broadcast. So with that, let me turn it over to Chuck.
I'm wired. Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming tonight. Glad to see you turned out. Kind of a crappy night, but sometimes that makes for some of the best light painting. So if you will, switch it over to the PowerPoint. Do you have the remote, Mike? Okay. Thank you. Light painting by me. And you need to click on it. I'm not advancing. So what is light painting? Light painting is where you take light from whatever source you want. It's a photographic technique where you can move the light around while your shutter is open, or you can use the light to actually reflect off of different scenes or different parts of the scene, to use reflective light to basically paint the light on your sensor. I think of light painting as all this are my brushes, and my sensor on my camera is my canvas. So consequently, I'm painting light onto my sensor. So what do you need for light painting? Camera, of course, your tripod, typically a medium zoom lens, a medium range like 18 to 55 or 24 to 70. You can go lower, you can go higher. You'll just have to place yourself a little farther or closer to the action. A remote trigger, one of the things to keep in mind with a remote trigger, some of them don't work with bulb. You want to make sure it works with bulb. Of course, your light source, most commonly it is flashlights. You'll hear them in Europe, they call them torches. You can use burning steel wool. We'll get into that a little bit. Light sticks, all kinds of things. Dark clothing's always helpful, unless you want to do portraits at night, light up portraits. Then you should have some light clothing. But dark clothing is kind of cool because you can also shine the light on somebody. You'll get their face, but their body will disappear, and you'll see everything that's behind them. So a lot of different things you can do. Creating the shot. You want to pick your site just like you're doing during the daytime. You want to have something with a nice background. Give some thought to it, because a lot of times people just get out there and they'll just wave around a light, and all you see is a black background with a swirl of light. And that's fine, but I like to see surroundings. I will also backlight things or light things in the background, usually a less intense light, so that it doesn't take away from the source of light that you're using. Walk through in your mind what you want to do, because once you get out there and start doing things, you're going to realize that, oh, wait a minute, what do I do? And it kind of ruins the shot. So you want to walk through the steps that you're going to be doing the light painting, and I'll show you some things, and then if we go outside, I can show you out there too. Set up your camera, choose your settings. Your settings, I typically start, your camera's always in bulb mode. Unless it's still fairly light, you can still do just a long shutter speed, but whenever I light paint, I'm always in bulb. Your ISO, I'm always shooting at 100 ISO, because you can always adjust your length of your bulb for how long you want to leave it open. The longer you leave your bulb setting open, the more light will gather. So at 100 ISO, the other thing too is a lot of these you can actually make them brighter. So you can compensate for darkness with your actual lights, so you don't have to make adjustments on your camera. The f-stop, I start at 5.6 to 7.1. What's going to determine that is the length of whatever you're doing. So if you're going to do something really quick, you're probably going to want a lower f-stop, so that you open it up and let a little more light in, especially if it's not a real bright light. And by the way, feel free to stop me at any time if you have any questions. I'm very flexible. I'm not real formal. Exposure setting on your camera. Don't use spot metering. What you want to use is either the matrix or evaluative. In other words, use the light from the entire frame, because a lot of times you're going to be lighting up that entire frame anyway. And you want, excuse me, you want your exposure setting so that it looks at the entire frame. Shine the light on your subject. Frame up your composition and focus in on it. You can use autofocus. Some people insist on using manual focus. When you set up a shot, remember, if you're doing something, let's say with a sword, and you're going out here and you're going out here and overhead, remember to leave enough room around your subject too when you're setting up your shot, because a lot of times people will get just above the head, and then when they're light painting above it, it gets lost out of the frame. So you can always crop down a little bit if you need to, but always make sure you leave enough room. That's why I say go through the steps and figure out what you want to do. If I'm doing something the length of this table and I know I'm going to be that high, then I want to make sure I get all that into my frame. Once you get focused in, If your focus is on your shutter release button, you got to turn your focus off, your autofocus off once you're focused in. If your autofocus, like when you press the trigger on your camera, it focuses automatically. Once it gets focused in and you release it, turn your autofocus off. The reason for that is if I focus in on Rich here, and I have a light shining on him, I'm not taking the shot yet, but I just want to make sure that's where he's going to be. I focus in on him and make sure I got a clear picture. Then when he starts light painting, when I hit that trigger again, guess what? It's going to try to refocus again. So focus and then turn your autofocus off once you're focused in. The other thing I do is I program my camera with back button focus. Back button focus is where you program one of your buttons on the camera, you hit that button, it focuses it. When you release it, it just stays there until you hit that button again. I find that's usually the easiest because I've had times where I'm taking shots all night long and I've been out for 3, 4, 5, 6 hours. And I've had stretches of like 4 hours where I did not have to refocus once because everything's going on pretty much in one spot at the same distance from you. You're just doing different designs and things like that. So consequently, I focus it and it just stays there. And everybody keeps saying, why aren't you refocusing? You got to focus. I said, it is focused. Using back button focus just allows you to not have to refocus every time. The tools. You want to turn the camera on real quick, please? Just to go over some of the tools, probably the most important tool is going to be this universal adapter. The universal adapter is basically, I got one here. The universal adapter is basically just a rubber cone that allows you to put whatever tool you're using in the end of it, like so. And then the flared end is where you can put your flashlight, and that directs all the light into your tool. These you can get at a place online called Light Painting Brushes. They have all kinds of tools. As a matter of fact, that's where a good amount of my tools came from. So anyway, that universal adapter, there's other places that sell them too that have their own form of the universal adapter to fit on your flashlight. I've even taken some radiator hose or some industrial hydraulic hose, and it will just fit over the camera, and it'll fit on the tools on the other end. It's just a 1-inch diameter. Speaking of other tools, what's kind of cool with this is you can make up your own stuff and use just like a bottle. That's just a 7-Up bottle with the label taken off of it. It makes kind of a neat green swipe, and then you can see at the end of it, it gets really bright. So you'll have these bright movements around. You can even take clear bottles. I sanded this so that you get this lighting effect where it diffuses the light a little bit. Some of the other tools, light swords. No, that's from the flashlight. The flashlight, it's just focusing all the light from the flashlight into your tool. There's light swords. There's fiber optics. This fiber optic, you can see the light from the sides of the fiber optic. There's black where the light only comes out of the ends. There's some pictures in there showing using that. As a matter of fact, on the list that I have here, I don't even list all the different tools, just some of the more popular ones. This is a, what do they call it? Oh, portrait light. This is one that it almost looks like a fluorescent light, so that when your tool is in there or your flashlight's in there, you turn it over and you have no light. This is what you can do at night to light people up. You just run this across the front of them, and once the light hits their face and the front of them, you'll have your portrait. It'll actually record that face. People think, well, you're going to see this one. Whenever you're shooting in bulb or you're shooting in a longer exposure, when you have movement like this, it doesn't show up. I can walk right in front of subjects and you'll never see me. And people wonder about that all the time. So you have that. You have steel wool, burning steel wool. You can do that. You have little lanterns. You have light sticks. Actually, this is a light bar. I made this light stick here. This is just a thing that I bought on Amazon. Just a LED strip. Very simple to operate. If I can get it plugged in here real quick. So you can pick different colors, brightnesses, and this also works out real well. This is just a broomstick with one of those light strips taped to it, and that's it. I just have a little flat. Actually, the battery I picked up at a trade show. They were freebies. They were giving them away, so I grabbed a handful of them. Was I in Spaceballs? Oh, that you mean with the lightsaber? Use the Schwartz. Some of the other things that you can get, these are retail things. This is the Magic. This will actually light up different colors. These are fairly expensive. I don't use it a lot, honestly, because I have found that the battery's dead too. No, that's right. Anyway, these were hot for a time because you could actually walk sideways with these and it would actually draw a picture for you. And a lot of people say that's not really light painting. That's just like, nothing really creative. Anybody can do it. So I don't use it a whole lot. I use it for making circles a lot of times. Wow, things coming apart on me. And as you can see, they're cheap Chinese things too. Anyway, moving on. Simple little traffic signal things these are just little, like you can find these at dollar stores you get a 3-pack for $1. Light writers. These are nice to, like, if you're writing at night. And then these are light pens that gives you a very fine beam. That sometimes these are good for making starbursts and things like that. So you can turn the camera off. So the different flashlight types. What I recommend is you can go as low as 100 lumen for a flashlight, but I recommend somewhere between 650 to 1,000, even more if you want to go higher. Go with a flashlight that has the Cree LED in it. Cree LED is the little yellow chip. It's just a square chip. You'll see it in the flashlight when you look down through the lens. Dimmable, I like dimmable flashlights because you can do so much more with them. There's also zooming and focusing flashlights that will go from a spotlight to a full flood. Warmer whites are best for light reproduction. Question? I always use auto white balance because you have such a contrast between the darkness of night and the colors. Who's to say the red isn't accurate? You know what I mean? Because a lot of times you can see by a lot of these lights, yeah, that's green, but it might be a little bluish in real life. But on the camera, it'll come out really green. So average white balance, auto white balance is what I always use. And I don't change the temps or anything like that. What I was going to say is some of the flashlights that have the little button type like multiple buttons in it, the LEDs that we always used to remember when they first came out. Those don't reproduce light very well. They'll come out bluish or greenish. I usually try to stay away from those. So, two different types, reflective and direct lighting. Reflective, exactly what it says. It's where you reflect it off of an item. This is Station Road Bridge. Bridges are nice when they're light colored. Can I turn this off? Mike, can you turn the light off, please? Oh, you got it there? Thanks. Bridges are nice, except if they're black or brown, you're not going to get much light reflecting off of it. You got to have something that's going to reflect light. This particular bridge is actually gray. It's a light gray. And as you can see, that was painted with you were talking about color. That was painted with a blue light, and it actually comes out a little purple. Now, if you want to change it in post-processing, you can, but I kind of like the purple color myself. Just a regular flashlight lighting up. This is kind of an eerie little house. This is out on Stone Garden. This is out on his property. It gives it kind of I try not to light the entire thing because what'll happen is you end up with a very flat looking type of photo. Whereas if you get some nice shadows in there and leave some of the edges and things dark, it makes, for me, it makes a more intriguing and a little spookier look in a lot of cases. This is also on that farm too. This is a building. It's always neat to get light reflecting inside. The problem a lot of people do is they'll shine the light right at the windows, thinking that, okay, this is going to light up red. You got to reflect the light off of something, because if I were to take a flashlight and just, I won't blind you, so I'll just do, and you just point it at the red, it's only going to pick up this light source right here. So when you want to paint the inside or have the windows like glow, you've got to paint the inside. So as you can see, I painted the back wall, I painted the ceiling, basically all three walls other than the wall with the windows. In this one, it was a flashlight. It was a red flashlight. Oh, I'm walking all in front of it, as well as inside too. That's what I mean, yeah. When you're walking through a frame, it doesn't pick up motion. If you stood still long enough, you would see an outline of me. Also, you want to try to keep in mind, don't get between your light source and your camera. Because what will happen is, if I stood in front of that building and I'm standing and painting in front of me, it's going to pick up my outline. And you'll see that later on. But yeah, same inside. I'm just, and this is the light here. I just made it wide, and I'm just painting everything and moving around and just pointing it everywhere except towards the camera. Say again? I used a green light. Actually, I used this one flashlight for this whole thing. And what I did is you see the board right along the middle there? I walked along that and I held the flashlight up so you can see the light pointing up the columns. It kind of lights the top of the frame of the window. And then I turned it over and came back and walked along that board again and just shined it down. And that's how you got the bottom frame. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Yes, for our viewers at home. The question was, how long did it take me to do this process? This particular one, I don't know off the top of my head, but if I had to guess, 2 minutes, maybe a minute. So, yeah, you're moving fast. You don't have to, though. One of the things you'll find out while you're light painting, it depends on how bright your light is. Because the longer you leave a light source on something, the more light or color is going to be reflected back to your camera. So a lot of times, if I were just to sit there and just kind of wash it real quick, it may show up very pale green. This one, I kind of held it real close to the source, and I just went along the source, shining the light down, moving at a slow walk, and that's one of the reasons why it came out so it's a little flat on the bottom, because I just washed the whole bottom with it. Now, sometimes you can get cool where you can paint a little bit, move over, paint a little more, and then you'll start to get different shadows and things like that. And we'll see that here in a second. Question is have I ever had anything blown out? All the time. Yeah, this is not something you're going to get frustrated. And the first time you go to light paint, oh my God, I can't tell you how many thousands, tens of thousands of photos that I've probably deleted, because you light something up and you go, oh crap, that is like totally blown out. So then you bump up your f-stop, and then you light it again and go, oh crap, now I can't see anything. And then you play with your f-stop, you play with the brightness of your flashlight, and the more you do it, the more acclimated you get to it. So you get to a point where you kind of know, okay, this scene's going to take 30 seconds. I'm going to do a 5.6 f-stop because my light's pretty bright, and so I don't need to go much lower than 5.6. Just like that bridge, that only took a few seconds. That wasn't very long at all, but we had a pretty intense blue light. And if once you paint that, you could always leave your shutter open, and now your trees and everything else will start to come in, because it will start picking up the ambient light that's being reflected off of the trees and things. This is pretty dark, so it's real tough to get the trees lit up unless you light them yourself. But you'll see in other situations that if you're getting some moonlight, guess what? You leave that shutter open and you'll get the grass coming in, you'll get everything else coming in. It'll almost look like daylight. No, because most cameras, now the camera I have, a camera that I use now, I can do that. But most cameras, you will not be able to do that. You can't view the photo until you release the bulb. So yeah, it's a process. And the question is for the people at home, do I view the photo before I stop taking it? Well, you can't view the photo before you stop taking it. You have to stop the photo to actually be able to look at it on most cameras. I have an Olympus that I use now, and that gives you what you call live bulb, that it actually flashes different frames at different intervals. I have mine set up for every second. It will put the picture on there as you're light painting. So you can kind of see what it's coming out, but the final act, no, you don't see it. A night shot. This is we went out to do star trails. We did star trails, and I thought this would be kind of cool to light up the windmill. So the star trails are 200. I stacked 200 frames on top of one another. The light painting is one frame. So during one frame I light painted the windmill, and that was it. Now you're saying, well, why is the barn and the tree all lit too? That was a car that was pulling in, and it lit up the barn just then another car was pulling out, and their brake lights lit up the tree down in the bottom left corner. And when I saw it, I went, oh, crap. But that's what's nice about stacking. You can take a frame out, or 2 or 3 frames, and it doesn't make a huge difference. I took that frame out because it was a separate frame than the windmill. I took that frame out. It was all dark, and I didn't like it. So I put it back in because I like the barn lit up, and I'm just kind of mad I didn't think about lighting it myself. I do a lot of light painting out at this place, Stone Garden Farms. I don't know if you've ever been out there, but they've got a lot of neat buildings and things like that. so far, all of these, I just realized they're all from there, all at different times. He has a recreation of a bunch of buildings out there, like an old farmstead type thing, an old town. It's in Richfield. Yes, yes. Stone Garden Farm is, I forget the name of the road. Southern Road. Thank you, everybody. Yeah, and they have a website. You can look it up. It's a great place to go light paint. Now, I do recommend that you reach out to the owners. The gentleman's name is Jim Fry, and Jim is quite a character, and very nice guy, very accommodating. He invites everybody onto his farm. He just says, if you're going to come out at night, make sure you let him know. Otherwise, he's going to come out and practice his Second Amendment rights. And I had to stop for a second. I went, oh, yeah, okay, I understand. No, he's never done that, but out of courtesy to him, I always tell him, hey, we'd like to come out and light paint. And then we give him some photos. Matter of fact, he even got into some of them where we light painted him and he looks like a ghost sitting in an old fire truck. So he gets into it. He has a lot of fun with it too. And he was really interested in this. We've been there as late as 2 o'clock in the morning. So in the theme of Halloween, it's all reflective. That's a question in the back. From the inside or the sky? Yeah, that gives you an idea how long, and I'm sorry, I keep forgetting we're broadcasting. The question is basically how did we get that redness in the sky over the post office here on this photo? No, that is actually shows you the length of the shutter being open, because those are the clouds in the sky. And that's just the ambient light that I was talking about. So yeah, there's no way I'm going to paint clouds unless I got some huge spotlight. But yeah, that's the clouds. They were moving pretty decent that night, and it was they do get some light pollution there from, I'm guessing, Akron. So you'll get a little bit of light reflecting on the clouds. Believe it or not, you don't see it with your naked eye. So when you take this shot, it's kind of a neat bonus. And like I said, this looks like it's fairly, it could be like at sunrise or sunset. This is probably like at 10 o'clock at night. So it's pretty dark out there. Actually, the question is, so that wasn't intentional. Yes, it was somewhat intentional, because I know a lot of the lighting in that area comes out reddish. So that's why we did red light inside. And also red is always kind of eerie. If you do yellow or blue, those are happy colors, and they just don't go along with light painting, for me at least. This was at an old funeral home. That's a chest freezer that we came across, and I thought it'd be kind of cool just to light paint it. So that's yours truly. That is using the fiber optics that I was talking about earlier. It's the black fiber optic where just the light comes out of the end of the fibers. And what you do is when you're taking the photo, you open up your shutter and you just take the fiber optic and just sweep it over your face. And just the little lights coming out of the end of the fibers are what makes those lines. Again, this is all these shots, with the exception of the star trails, all these photos are in one shot, one frame. No post-processing as far as Photoshop or anything like that. I will boost the levels, colors, contrast, that type of thing. So both of these are me. I lit up the front of my face, and then I stepped over to the side and I turned and I lit up the side of my face. So consequently, that's how I could get to. We never turned the camera off. We never stopped it. Actually, in this one, I have another photo where I have 3 faces, and it looks like I got 3 heads, kind of. I didn't like it quite as well as this one, so. direct light. Some people, Mike likes to call it light drawing. I still call it light paint. This is the direct light. This is using 3 different lights. This is using a sword, a writer, and a pen, I believe. So it's just an abstract look. You can make all kinds of designs. One thing that people forget about doing is they'll sit out there and they'll light paint something, and let me just grab something here. Oops. They'll take something and just swirl it around, and you end up with just one. You end up just with one little area that's filled with light, and it's a lot of scribbling. This is covering an area about 20 feet wide. So you just can walk along and just do different things. You'll find different movements will give you different patterns, and you'll get patterns down, and you'll start realizing, oh, if I do this, it gives me what I call a bow tie. If I take like this light stick and I walk along and just twist my wrist as I walk along, it looks like vertical bow ties all along the distance I'm walking. I always like to do reflective lighting behind any direct lighting because I think it adds to the photo. Here we light painted the trees. I drew those skeletons. I drew them on a person, and both of those skeletons is the same person. So she stood on one side with the sword out. I just kind of etched real quick with just a simple little light, drew a skeleton on her. She went over and stood the other spot. You have to kind of know where your light was before you, so you have to kind of picture it in your mind. This is where I was talking about. You want to, in your mind, pick the sequence of what you want to do. So then she went to the other side. I painted her. I did the outline of the skeleton there, and then we light painted behind them. So as you can see, the lights behind them are coming through. She's not blocking that light. Question. She was wearing, yes. The question is what was she wearing? No, she was naked. No, no, she took off all of her skin and all of her organs, and it was real easy to. No, she was wearing all black. She was wearing a black hoodie. As a matter of fact, a lot of times we'll put the hoodie up, and so that you don't get the side of your face in there. Some people really take it to the extreme where they'll wear a black mask too. But like I said, as long as you're now there, she was standing still, but because she was standing still, you can't pick up the black because there's no light reflecting off of it. And the face part, that's actually her face. She had to close her eyes because I traced around her eyes and stuff like that. As you can see, you won't see it. This is the fire truck I was talking about where Jim Fry was in it, and it not on this shot, obviously, but the flames are and I didn't bring it out, a light blade. It's a blade that's shaped kind of like a flame that has both a yellow and a red. It's just plexiglass. They're glued together, and it goes into this adapter, and so you'll get kind of like a yellowish and a reddish flame, and then you just sit there and you just kind of swirl it around and make it look like flames. I thought it was kind of ironic, a fire truck that's on fire. Another direct. This is more like the light sticks that I was showing you. I was not taking the picture of her. I was taking the picture of the whole scene. You can see the 2 cameras over on the right, but she's lit up with this with the portrait light that I was talking about. We just ran that light down the front of her, down her arms, down her face. You can see it gives you a nice shadow on the arms. It gives you a shadow on the sides a little bit. So it shadows in the right place. It doesn't look flat. It has some dimension, some depth to it. And then the red is one of these fiber optics, except it's a whip. And it just has a bunch of fiber optics on this whip. And we just swirled around behind her. And that's how you got kind of that reddish, almost flame looking. This is a sword orb. This is using a yellow sword. That's this one here, where you just basically make a circle, and I'll show you this if we get a once we get outside. While you're spinning the sword around, and you can get an orb like that. I like to get water in a lot of the shots because light reflected off of water, I think, is very cool. The break wall there, I lit that up. That was very dimly, so you can see on that wall, I just lit it real fast because I didn't want it to be bright. I wanted the orb to actually be the point of attention. So I just ran the green light across that wall. Remember I was talking about getting between your light source and the camera? That's on the right side there. That's exactly what happened. She was light painting that wall, but she was painting it in front of herself. And I thought it was kind of cool, so that I left it in. And then the flower is actually, there's a guy behind there actually drawing that flower. Again, he's wearing black. Because he's moving a little bit. You can see that the purple part is a light blade, and then the green part is a light rider. Spinning orbs. My friend is excellent. I call him the orb master. That's an orb. That's taking a light at the end of a string, spinning it around, and then walking around in a circle to create that orb. Yes, Squire's Castle. He did the orb. I painted the outside, and then I painted the inside as well. We'll have more like that. This was down in Metro Parks along the river. Here was one that we hadn't shot there before, so we didn't really know what the setup was going to be. He spun an orb, and it was cool because you got a reflection in the water, but I said, that's it. That's all you saw because it was so dark. So I lit the rocks along the side, and then we were lucky enough, in the background, a car was driving by, so we got its taillights going through the woods. So that kind of added to it, too. Again, an orb, and then light painting an old car. The headlights I made red by just shining a red flashlight right into the headlight. So you don't see my hand, you don't see the flashlight, you don't see me. Yes. Right. That's what exactly the question is can you should you keep away from getting between your light source and the camera? Right. Whatever you're light painting, whether it's a direct or whether it's reflective, that's what happened in this shot is she was painting the light wall in front of herself. And I was on the other side of her, and I, before I realized it, I just let her finish doing it. But then that's how you came out with all those silhouettes. She would paint it a little bit and step down, paint it. And as you can see, there's no real blur to it because as she's moving, you're not going to pick it up. But when she would stop and stand there and light paint a little bit, that's when I got her silhouettes. So the answer to your question, yes, you want to try to keep out from between whatever you're painting and the camera. Now, that's not to say you can't always, because once you paint something, you can step in front of it all day long and it won't pick it up. It's only while you're actually doing the painting. Yeah. What I would say that again. The question is how basically the question is how do you keep yourself out of it when you're painting a wall like that? Okay. Yeah, on this particular one, what I would do is, like I said, once you paint something, you can step in front of it, because once it's painted, that's on your sensor. So I would have started farther away. Now you don't want to shine the light towards the camera, because it's going to pick up the flashlight and you're going to see swirls all over the place. So what I would typically do on something like that is I'd stand off to the side and I'd shine the light like right next to me. And I would start at the far end, and then as I work back, now the stuff I've already painted, since I'm not standing in front of that anymore, the camera's not going to pick me up. But she started closer to the camera on this shot and walked away from the camera. Now you can, right, exactly. You can walk through what's already been painted. Yeah, exactly. Because it's already there. You've already put the paint on the canvas. Another question? Sure. Yes. A good imagination. The question is, how does the stem lining up with the flower head? It ends right at that spot. That's part of setting up your shot. You have to keep in mind, when you do that, you pick a point on the ground, you draw a straight line up, and you draw it up to basically your chin. So you know, okay, that's where the stem stops. You go back down to the ground, and you come back, and you go off to the side and do one swirl. You come up a little farther, maybe go out and do another swirl. But you kind of envision that imaginary line of the stem. Then when you get up to the top to do the flower, you actually turn your light blade on and you make petals. That's turning the flashlight on and off. This shot probably took 3 or 4 minutes. With each blade, he lights it up once, turns it off, turns it a little bit, lights it up, keeping in mind that right about where his chin is that's where the center of the flower is going to be. So he holds the handle of the flashlight right about at his chin level, and that flower is actually behind the stem. You can see how the stem actually covers up the petals. So he stood back a little bit and did those petals to the flower. Like I said, you're going to do a lot of shots where that stem is here and the flower is going to be like 6 inches off to the side of it. There's some others in here that were kind of crazy too. This is an orb, again, reflection. I painted the background blue, but I just did a very, very faint blue. This is like at 10 o'clock at night. Like I said, you don't have to have a totally dark area. This is, if you've ever been down to, I think it's Liberty Park. This is on the west side or west bank of the Cuyahoga. Very bright. This is kind of the iconic Cleveland, downtown Cleveland shot. We decided let's spruce it up and put an orb there, and we did the orb on the boardwalk. And as long as your light is brighter than your ambient light, it's going to show up. So this is a pretty bright light here, and that way we used a higher f-stop because we knew that if we left the shutter open long enough, the bridge is going to get blown out, the buildings will probably get blown out. So we wanted to make sure, you have to estimate it, like this is going to be maybe a 40-second shot, so you want to boost that up because all those buildings would get blown out if you didn't do that. So then we made sure the orb was bright enough, it's going to be picked up because it was a little brighter than the ambient, I started saying ambient temperature, the ambient light around it. That is putting the light at the end of a string, basically like this. If this is your light, you spin it around like this, and then you walk around a circle, but you have to make sure you're spinning right over the same point. So you're walking around the circle, but the spinning is going in towards the center of that circle that you're walking around. And for the Halloween theme, we did a pumpkin one year, jack-o'-lantern. This is what a lot of people like, the burning steel wool. This is sparks. This is just taking steel wool, putting it in a inexpensive whisk, putting it on a line and spinning it around. That's as simple as it is right there. You light the steel wool with a 9-volt battery. You just rub the 9-volt battery against the steel wool. It will start glowing. You can do it in a couple of spots so that you get the whole thing engulfed. Once you add oxygen to it and you start spinning, that's what you get. You'll get sparks flying off everywhere. And if you're going to do steel wool, you can see the pieces hitting the ground. This is molten steel hitting the ground. On this one, I started a fire under the sand. There was a piece of driftwood. Now, the trees were all live, and they were all green, so I didn't worry about those. We did this spin, and we walked away. We're doing some other shots, and somebody turned around and said, "Hey, somebody started a fire over there." And I was like, "Oh, crap, that's right where we were." We went over there. The fire was literally coming out of the sand. And I thought, what, we gas leak? So we started moving the sand around. There was a dead piece of driftwood under the sand. A spark had gone through the sand and caught that wood on fire. And we had a flame about 3 feet high because it took off. And we started throwing more sand on it, and we were there for 10 minutes trying to get this fire out. So be very careful when you do this. This is a great time to light paint, but you have dry leaves all over the place. I always try to do it in some place that's non-flammable. I did it under a bridge one night where it was just dirt, just total dirt. But up against the pylon for the bridge, there was a bunch of old dried leaves, and it was like slimy, and there was moss growing on it. And we did a spin like this, and I looked over, and I'll be damned if it didn't start wet leaves on fire. And it wasn't a flame, it was smoldering, but if we let it go, it probably would have taken off. Squire's Castle again, instead of just spinning it, we did an orb. And that throws sparks everywhere, 360 degrees. This was kind of a fun shot. We're on a bridge above her spinning. This is along a creek bank, so it's nothing but sand and rock and water. And I kind of cropped it to make it just look like a shower of sparks. And believe it or not, none of those sparks burned through that umbrella. We thought for sure that umbrella was going to be toast afterwards. They apparently hit it with such force and was so quick that they just bounced off. You can see them bouncing off. It did not burn the umbrella. Now, you're talking about lining things up. This is one with an orb where we did spinning steel wool above it. This is one, same spot. We did an orb, but we did the spinning steel wool behind it. And this took probably about 8 different shots because we couldn't get the orb lined up just right. We had to have just enough length of chain when we were doing the steel wool so that you didn't see any space behind the orb and the circle of the steel wool. So that took a lot of lining up. You also don't have to control the light. Carnivals and fairs are a great place to do light painting, where you wait till the rides start moving. Your settings are pretty much the same. Actually, you want to bump them up, 7.1 typically. You would think this may take a while. What takes time is wait until all the rides start moving at the same time. That's what I waited there the longest. Once they started going, that's maybe a 2-second frame. That's it. Because these things are moving so fast. And I found that it's usually better to wait till either the ride's just starting up or just ending because it's moving slower and you get more different patterns. Looks like a spaceship in the right, doesn't it? Yeah, and that was all 4 rides were going. Now, because the car wasn't real well lit, you can't see it. It dropped during that period. But because it was moving, you can't even see the car, but you can definitely see the other things that are moving. Jackson County or Jackson Fairgrounds, Jackson Fair. As a matter of fact, we've gotten to the point we follow this. We follow this carnival company. This is in excuse me. This is in Canal Fulton, and they have one of the best Ferris wheels to shoot because they do a rhythmic motion to the lights. It isn't just like on and then off. They do patterns switching to other lights. Now you'll see a lot of times you'll just get circles when you shoot a lot of Ferris wheels because they light it up red or white or whatever, and then it goes off and then they light it blue. This one actually will go into different. This particular one, this started at the center and the spokes went out. So I didn't wait till it got all the way out to the outer edge. This was only like half a second because it starts off from the center and it shoots those lines out to the outer edge. And if I had waited long enough, I would have just gotten circles in there, just those reddish and yellow circles. But by catching it like this, you get some different lines to it. Going from a blue to a red. Again, this is probably like, this is when it's going, the ride's starting to stop. Maybe half a second, maybe 1 second. You don't need to do it long. This is at Broadview Heights here at the home days. Again, if I had done a longer release, shutter release on this, it would have just been a solid. So I just did a real quick, probably a 30th of a second, and you get those spokes in there. So sometimes you don't have to do a real long shutter. You can do a short shutter and get some really neat things. Question is are we still using bulb? Are we using any metering? We're not using any light metering. We've gotten accustomed to, we know where the settings are, and it's just from trial and error pretty much. And yes, we're still in bulb. And so we know that, like with a Ferris wheel going around, we'll hit one shot like 1/30th of a second. We look at it and see, okay, a little longer would give us a little more action in there. So we do one and not even get to 1/1000 and then release it. So you sit there and you'll get just on one ride, on one round, you may get 20 photos, and you'll only keep 1 or 2 of them, if that. This is, again, that's here at the home days. This is the Paratrooper Ride, and this is one where I didn't want the background in it, so I did darken it. This is not only taking a picture while it's moving, but I'm also zooming the lens at the same time. And that's how you get kind of this almost looks like a palm tree, multicolored palm tree. But yeah, that's how I got some of the comb looking lines to it. Just a slight zoom while it's moving, slight zoom in. You can zoom out. I've actually done them where it was a zoom in and out. I've actually done it where you zoom in, you wait, and you zoom in some more, and you just start trying different things. You'll get all kinds of wild, different patterns. Fireworks are always fun. I always try to get something as a reference in the frame with the fireworks. This is actually on a boat, so we can't use tripods. You can't use bulb. This is about one. I was setting my camera at about 1/250th of a second to 1/100th of a second. So that's why it's kind of grainy. I took the ISO up to like 3200, I believe, on this. Sometimes 6400. You just have to kind of get to that range where you can get a shutter speed of around 100 to 250, and just start shooting. When the firework goes up and it blows up like that, that's when you take your picture. It's quick, but you'll see you are getting grain in the sky and a little bit in the buildings and stuff like that. But to me, a grainy picture is better than no picture at all. Of course, it would be much better if you were on dry land and you could use a tripod, use bulb and all that, but just wanted to show you, you can do things handheld. This is that fair again in Canal Fulton. That same Ferris wheel. That's the Ferris wheel that you saw before. Just wanted to get the fireworks in it. I got the fireworks. I was waiting for the Ferris wheel to be still when the fireworks went up, because I found as the Ferris wheel was moving, the exposure for the fireworks were so long that it was just a big white blur. So I wanted to wait till it stopped. That's actually three, maybe just two different fireworks that went up. So in other words, it went up. I opened the shutter when the first one went off. I left it there, waited till the second one, and the third one came up and went off again. So that's basically 3 sets of fireworks, but 1 frame. Nighttime and cityscapes. I'll go through this pretty quick. Nighttime, blue hour. Blue hour is great. Golden hour is very good. I like the blue hour. This is actually at about 5:30 in the morning. This is down in Peninsula. But you can do it dead at night and just use it with the ambient light. This is downtown Akron, and I just thought it was kind of a colorful mural. Set up, took the picture. I tried to find different angles of Cleveland downtown that a lot of people don't use. This is over in Tremont, looking out off the new towpath trail that they just finished. The Hope Memorial Bridge it was kind of tough because it kept changing colors. So sometimes you get it between colors. This was one finally that I could get red, white, and blue. Water is always great to have in a picture for reflections. This is Pittsburgh, 3 Rivers. I was saying before, you don't always have to have a tripod. You can do a handheld. This is handheld right here. And this is probably 9 at night. It's dark. It's pretty dark. This one I did do a little adjusting. I put the sky in. The sky was totally black, and it just to me didn't look very good. But this is handheld. Is there a question? Again, water. Bridges are always nice going into cities because they're leading lines. It kind of draws your attention into the city. Again, this is the blue hour. If you're not familiar, blue hour is right after golden hour. It's right after the sun goes down. The sky may look pretty dark, but it'll still come out pretty blue like that. Question is this still on bulb? No, good question. This one, when I do night shoots of skylines and nightscapes, I still shoot in 100 ISO, but I set I usually use aperture priority so that I create the depth of field that I want. Now this, because the city was so far away across the river, I used a pretty low f-stop, probably 4.0, maybe even 2.8. I have it as aperture priority. I pick my f-stop, and I will use matrix or evaluative metering, so it takes all the light into consideration. Because if you just do the lights, and you zoom in on, or you focus on just the lighting, your exposure will be just set up just for the lights. The buildings will be dark then. And if you do it on if you do it on a building, then your lights get blown out. So you want to take lighting from the entire frame when you're doing, especially something that's lit up as much as, this is Hartford, especially when it's lit up as much as that is. Columbus, I just thought the repetition of the arches were kind of neat. It makes it look kind of neat in the water too. Again, this is going over a river. That's also Columbus. Blue Hour. Fantastic night. We set up on a bridge that overlooks downtown, and we were getting wonderful blue hour shots, but you couldn't see that blue. Streaking, and I don't mean streaking like that, light streaking. It's always good to stand on the corner, and this is where I will use bulb, because a lot of times you don't know how long it's going to take a car to go by. I shoot towards a corner. The reason I shoot towards a corner is because when people are turning or they're stopping at a stoplight, their brake lights come on. And that's when you get the brightest lights. This guy was slowing down for, I think, somebody in the crosswalk, or maybe there was a car in front of it, and then he took his foot off the brake, and you can see how the streaks just ended right there. Playhouse Square. I stand at the corner, wait for him to turn around that corner down East 11th, and I'm sorry, East 20th. Is that 11th? 14th? East 14th. You're right. Thank you. East 14th, because they come up to the turn and they have to slow down, so they hit their brake lights. And sometimes you can get them going all the way around the corner. Again, I use bulb. I just wait till the lights go by and I release the bulb. Progressive Field, great corner there where you can get lights going all the way across. You can even see the lights going down Ontario there. That's always been a fun shot. That's down by the Fireman's Museum. Don't forget about black and white. Black and white comes out really nice at nighttime. It gives you a great contrast. East 4th Street. Again, this was handheld. Reflections on the water. The whole lighting I thought was kind of yellowish, and I thought, no, this is going to look, I think it looks much better in black and white. And fireworks even in black and white. Thank you. Any questions? Any questions? Question. The question is, how long have I been doing light painting, and how long did it take me to get comfortable with it? I've been doing light painting probably 5 or 6 years now. And I got into it kind of by necessity, because I would work and I wouldn't get done, or I wouldn't get home and it was almost dark, and it's like I'd want to shoot. And weekends, a lot of times, you know, you got to cut the grass and you got to do all this stuff when it is daylight. So I came across some people doing light painting online, and I just started reading up on it. One of the greatest sites you can go to is light painting, excuse me, lightpaintingbrushes.com. And if you could put my PowerPoint back up, just turn the camera on. Just click the camcorder. Yeah, there you go. That's good. I have my email. If you ever want to send me an email asking me questions or asking me what sites that I go to a lot of times to pick this stuff up, I do have lists. I didn't want to include them in this presentation because it just gets way too long. I also have a group on Facebook called Neo Light Painters. So feel free to look that up, ask to join the group. I lost my job last year in September, so now I've got a lot of free time. And so I'm going to probably start trying to put together little groups and going out light painting, and I will announce it on Neo Light Painters. So. Absolutely, because what we're going to do out here, the question is there anything that she can do in her backyard to practice? And yes, there definitely is. You can do light painting anywhere. You can do it inside if you want to, if you have enough room. Just the way, and kind of back to the other question too, is how long did it take me to get acclimated to it? I started off by just writing stuff and seeing how it came out and how a light sword would look. So yeah, just do it. You can do it in your backyard. You can do it in your basement. You can, just like here, there's not going to be a real great background, but you'll get the idea of what to do. And then you can go into some place that has a nice background and light up the background as well. And you come up with a good photo. But I recommend starting off just with a couple of tools. This light painting brushes place website, they have beginners packages, and I'm not endorsing them. This is just where I got my stuff. There's, if as a matter of fact, Pixel Connection is carrying a lot of this stuff too, so you can get these things from Pixel Connection. But just start swinging things around, lights, just to see how it looks, because you'll start getting an idea of, okay, how long do I need to leave this shutter open to get this swung around, and how bright is it? So then you'll start getting an idea of your f-stop. And to answer your other part of the question, it took me a few weeks, but I never really got, discouraged, because you could see things getting better as you're going along. And then you'd see something else online and say, oh, I got to try that. And then you start thinking, well, what happens if I do this? And you just start trying all kinds of new things. And that to me is what's fun about it, is it will go as far as your creativity. If you're not real creative, then get ideas off the line. But if you're creative and you like art and you understand, brush strokes and all that type of stuff, this should come very easy for you. So, any other questions? All right, who's going to come out and light paint if it's not raining? Oh, all three of you. Okay. No, I'm kidding. Let me see what the weather's like.
All right, and while Chuck is checking out the weather, I just want to thank you, Chuck, for a great presentation. I hope people get out and give it a try. Hopefully we can do that tonight. But again, thanks very much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. My pleasure. It is nice out. It's chilly, but we can light paint. Since it rained, we can probably even do some burning steel wool. So
And the plan was to try and record at least some of the workshop outside, and maybe we would add that into what's on YouTube as well, correct?
if anybody would be so kind to just maybe do some recordings while we're doing this on your phone, and then you can send us the video, and we'll put it up on the YouTube page, on our YouTube page for CPS. All right.
Okay, thanks again.